Tonight, a former member of Whitney Houston's family talks for the first time since the singer's death, and she knows a lot about the family dynamics. She was married to Whitney's brother, Gary. She's also going to comment on Oprah's interview this past weekend with Whitney and Bobby Brown's daughter, Bobby Christina, and her ex-husband. Joining me now is Monique Houston. So, what was your reaction first to your husband's interview?
Well, the whole interview was a little disturbing to me because I just thought it was a little soon to expose Bobby Chrissy to the media.
Yeah.
You know, I've lost my mother, and losing your mother is a huge trauma in your life, and I think she really needs time to heal.
How did she seem to you during that interview?
She seemed poised.
But she can't, inside she must be falling apart, right? She has to be.
Well, I would be.
You would
I
be.
fell apart when I lost my mother. It took me almost a year to recover.
And were you young like she was?
No, it was actually around the same time when my divorce was final.
Okay.
Everything happened at once.
And you divorced Gary, who was in the interview.
Yes. Because
of a drug problem?
Yes. Well, I knew from the beginning of Gary's drug issues, and not necessarily because he was a drug addict. I was always committed to helping him and supporting him in his quest for recovery. But once things were spinning too far out of control, I had to make the decision to separate myself from the situation. And I have 2 children. They were very young at the time, and it was a matter of I had to make a choice of survival for me and my children mentally and spiritually.
Now, when there's addiction in a family, oftentimes the family will become very enmeshed. People will protect each other, and you'll either be inside or outside.
Right.
Is that what Gary's family was like?
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Tell me about that.
It always is. It always has been a tight camp. Even initially, when I first was in, you know, there was very much a leeriness. Who is this person? What are her motives? You know.
Did they have secrets, you think?
Do they have secrets?
Family secrets that they were hiding, and you were sort of an intruder?
I've always felt like an intruder. I always felt like an outsider. You know, at times I really was welcomed in, and that was a process of having them feel comfortable with me around, like I didn't have many ulterior motives, or I wasn't, you know, conniving or quote unquote a gold digger. You know.
Gold digger meaning that were other people in the family trying to maneuver to get closer to Whitney? Is that what that meant?
A large part, most of the people in her camp, it was very important to be close to her. You know, who had that point of reference, or who was the go-to person for her? Who did she turn to the most or have close to her? And I never really wanted to be in that realm. I was there for Gary. I loved my husband. I loved my family. I wanted them to survive. I loved Whitney, Nippy as she was called, and I loved her as a sister. But I did not want to be her right-hand man. I didn't want to, you know, my focus was my family and my husband.
Now, Oprah asked Gary and Patricia if they ever thought they might lose Whitney to addiction. Take a look at this. We're going to watch it right now together.
Okay.
Not this soon.
Not this soon.
I never thought anything like this would happen.
You didn't?
Never thought it would end up like this, really.
Even during the days when she was in the throes of drug abuse, you never feared that there would be a phone call?
It always crosses your mind. I mean, that something can happen, but you never think it can happen to yourself. You never think it could happen to someone you love.
I call that denial.
I would call that denial. That was one of the realities that I lived with Gary's drug issues. You know, the binging, the recovery, the relapse. I always was warned that could take a toll on one's body. And
but here his sister is dead, and he's still in denial that one should expect death from addiction, which is common.
It's common. It's one of the downfalls, or one of the things that you worry about when you have somebody who does have drug addiction problems.
Were you aware how bad Whitney's drug addiction was?
I was aware of what it developed into. By the time my experiences with Nippy were before things really got bad. So a lot that I witnessed was after I had left the family. I could see the difference on TV. I had conversations with people who worked for her, and some of the things that were going on, which were disturbing and, you know, sad.
One of the things I found troubling is how they seem to make a differentiation between Whitney, the illicit drug user, and Whitney, the alcohol pill user. What was that all about?
I don't know what that was about from their perspective, but when you're a drug addict or you have addiction issue, a drug is a drug is a drug. Whether it be pills, whether it be alcohol, a beer, a glass of wine.
But why didn't they seem to know that or concern themselves about that and enable that when that was going on and eventually killed someone they loved? Why didn't someone step up in that family?
I couldn't tell you why. That was my role. I always was there for Gary, vigilant on going to the programs, going to the group counseling, individual counseling, marital counseling, being the supportive person in his recovery. And
did that family distrust recovery or mental health services? Did they just reject that kind of treatment?
To a certain degree. You know, the thing about drug addiction, there are so many people who wrestle with that. It's not always like a badge of shame or you're a bad person.
Not at all.
Or it's
anyone that
issue.
understands addiction would not feel that way. That's what I find so concerning. Like, oh, Whitney, the cocaine user, was a bad person. Whitney, that drinks alcohol, that's the good person. That's the dead person. That's sad. That's sad.
It's tragic.
It's tragic,
That's one of the reasons why I'm here, Dr. Drew, because I just want to enlighten people about enabling and perception. You know, you can't totally judge a drug addict by their actions when they're using.
They're on drugs.
They're on drugs.
Right.
That doesn't make them a bad person or a crazy person. That's a person with addiction issues. And there are certain steps you should take in order to make sure that they don't slide back into that type of behavior. Who do you surround yourself with? What are your perceptions on a glass of wine? When I was married to Gary, you know, we went through a number of programs, and I supported him through those rehabs. But if he had a beer, the warning signs went up.
Of course.
The alarms started going off.
Why didn't that happen for Whitney?
Sometimes I believe when you're a celebrity, people close to you just want to remain in that circle.
Would she become aggressive and reject people if they tried to confront her?
I have no experience on that. I don't know how she behaved.
Okay.
But I think if you're a celebrity, sometimes you have to watch who you have around you. If they're yes people, or are they people who will say, whoa,
care about
what are you doing?
Yeah, no matter however you might react or whatever your feelings about it. Got to take